right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Sandy, could you call the roll?
Matthew Williams.
Here.
Liz Bonhag. Present. Jason Clark.
Here.
Heather Fort. Here. Glenn LaPolte.
Here.
Justin Severin.
Here.
Olivia Trubig.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us to item 2.1, the capital project presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Lantier. I'll be presenting the capital improvement plan for the upcoming budget vote. I do see a few new familiar faces tonight. If you did attend the previous sessions and you've seen this information as board, I know we've been through it a number of times. I'm going to go through it all again. If I'm going rather quickly, there is a lot of information here, but if you need clarification, I mean, this is a small enough group that if you need clarification, I think you can stop me. If more people come and it continues to go on, we may ask to save everything to the end, but we'll go towards that route at this point. So like I mentioned, Mike Lantier, my background is engineering. I have dedicated my career to working with K-12 and higher education, more so K-12 school districts throughout the tri-state area for pre-bond referendum services through design work, through construction, basically that entire construction process. I work for a company called H2M Architects and Engineers. We have about 550 employees, basically every type of architect and engineer, especially anything that we would need for a school like this and the work that we're going to discuss tonight. So the team that may look familiar to a number of you, Severio and Katrina and myself, unfortunately we're not the only members of the team for the type of work that we're posing as part of this project. It's going to require a number of different types of architects and engineers. My team will probably be about 40 to 50 architects and engineers and probably eight or so different disciplines. So where are we today? Tonight we're going to discuss the projects that are specifically included in the upcoming bond referendum vote. But to give you a little background on the capital improvement plan process, it's something that has been in the works for a number of years. It basically started with the previous building condition survey, which is required by the New York State Education Department on typically a 5-year rotating basis, where a professional would come in and evaluate all of your spaces of all of your buildings and basically put together a list of items with priorities, and they would encompass every building, every room really within the district. With that, you develop a 5-year plan. You look at your current needs, you look at your future needs as well, and then you would further prioritize. You typically put them into buckets, that is what we did as well. And then you continue that prioritization process and the budgeting process. You determine, what are key, what can the district afford, what does the Construction Facilities Committee, who was a big presence, who discussed a lot of these items. What do they feel like they want to recommend and put forth? What is their best option to put forth to the board as a recommendation to include in the bond? We're going to go through these items tonight. I include this slide just to give an idea of your building's age, the history. Many of your buildings are 50 plus years old, with parts of your middle school reaching 1930s, almost 100 years at this point. And like our own houses, they require upkeep, they require maintenance. And the school district has done a very good job on maintaining their buildings with their annual maintenance budgets that are available. But like everything else, there comes a time where you do need larger replacements than an annual maintenance budget would cover. And that really leads us to where we are today. And in the upcoming slides, I'm going to be presenting on 3 propositions or 3 priorities as well. Proposition 1, Proposition 2, and Proposition 3. 1 really includes your really fairly critical items. There's nothing that's considered life safety at this time, but there are critical items that if they're not repaired, maintained, or replaced fairly soon are going to just continue to increase in costs and needs. We'll go through the numbers in more detail in a little bit. The district's financial consultant is here as well that we'll introduce shortly, and she'll go through some more of a breakdown of what the cost impact is and how these propositions are broken down financially. So just to give a quick background on project cost, you're going to see a number for a lot of the items, and you see them in here. And it's not just a construction cost. It's not what we would anticipate just to pay for labor and materials. There's other items that are included in there. You have general conditions. You have insurance costs. You do have architectural fees. You have construction management fees. You have insurance costs if I didn't include that. And then there's also some escalation because the work is not slated to start for still another year and a half or so. And the presented project costs that I'm including do not account for state aid. These are just the construction costs that you would expect to pay and the soft costs that you would expect to pay on a per project basis. Again, Ms. Ferguson will go into further detail shortly. There is a slight small examples on the side. Basically, if you're looking at a $10 million project of hard costs, that does include about 30%, 32% of almost of your soft costs, and then almost $500,000 of that would be anticipated escalation costs. So getting into the scope of work, and again, I'm going to go a little bit quicker, so if there are specific questions, we can wait till the end, or you could quickly raise your hands if you would like to. But starting really with the first picture, district-wide is lighting upgrades, LED lighting upgrades. It was very important to the board to include an energy conservation measure within the bond proposal, and a really beneficial item and low-hanging fruit is your lighting. It's a simple lighting upgrade. It has the potential of reducing your energy costs for your lighting by approximately 50%. So it's an investment. And then looking at the high school bleachers and press box is the next items. They it's an older manufacturing standard that was used on the bleachers. There's wood planking that's no longer used. ADA seating is not really adequate, and the press box, the same thing. It's exceeded its anticipated life at this point. That's really going to be a lot of the items in here. They're getting to be that 30+ year mark for a number of the items where things do start to fail. Replacement parts are difficult to come by, and your maintenance costs at some point are going to exceed your replacement costs. So the next one, high school 2, is some smaller locker room renovations. There's just some old equipment within the locker rooms that are just no longer used, like stand-up gang showers. The locker room could use a refresh as well. The next one is window and door upgrades. You're going to see that at a number of the schools as well. Again, the windows are between that 20, 30+ year range where the weatherization of some of them has failed. There's some rusting, some rotting where you have the sand or the salt on the casework. So it's not full replacements. It's a combination depending on the wing or the area that you're in and the condition of the window. Some are replacements, some are repairs. Moving on to high school 4 is gas bib replacements. Again, they're just kind of reaching that end of life 25+ year mark where they should be replaced prior to failure. Number 5 is just a large ceiling tile replacement throughout the corridors, replacing some of the stained, some of the worn, some of the broken, some of the sagging 2x4 ceiling tiles with a more conventional 2x2 system. The next one is high school boiler room upgrades. It's not an extensive overhaul of the boiler room. The boiler room is working adequately, but there are some pumps, there are some valves that are reaching the end of their life that are slated and recommended for a replacement. Moving on to the middle school, the first item is just a grease trap replacement. That's an item in the kitchen. You're going to see that at a couple of the other schools as well. It's just, again, it's time. They should be replaced every 20 to 30 years. It's something that requires maintenance. There's I won't go into details, but there's some nasty stuff in them that does tend to corrode the components. So you do want to include that in an upgrade. Looking looking at middle school too is the bathroom upgrades. Again, they're 30 years old. If you can walk in them and you can see the status of the tile, the fixtures, of the doors. It's slated for an upgrade. Moving on to middle school 3, again, gas bib replacements. Number 4 are the staircases, the exterior staircases. It's just the age of water and the ice and the freeze and thaw cycle has broken a lot of the masonry apart. So some of them are currently unusable. It's time to really replace them. And then moving on to Lenape, number 1 item slated is the roof replacement. There's an older roof on that building. There's a number of HVAC equipment that is just abandoned on the roofs at this point that will be removed as part of a roofing project to weatherize that building. You have additional grease traps, and then at Lenape you have your water tank, your water storage tank is slated for replacement. That's in the back of the building. It's actually underground. It's original to the building. Lenape 4 is again window and door replacement, similar to the other schools. Some being replaced, some being re-weatherized or repainted and primed and painted for the door frames. Moving on to 5 is an entire asphalt replacement for the entire site. If you have driven through there, you can see the cracks are extensive and throughout, and they're beyond crack repair. Duzine does have a grease trap replacement as well. The picture would look the same as the other schools. And then just moving to building and grounds, a couple smaller projects. We have snow protection. There are no snow rakes on there, and it does create a hazard for vehicles and people coming in and out of the building. And then there's a small section of the roof that you see in black in the bottom right picture. That is an older roof that should be replaced as well. So now as I move on to Proposition 2 or Priority 2, we'll look back at the high school. So 7 and 8 is drainage and irrigation for your softball and your baseball competition fields. There's known drainage issues out there, and there are known irrigation issues. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, really 16 as well, kind of rework that entire back area of the high school. When we look at the back corner on the other side of the existing track, a lot of that equipment would be replaced. So we're talking about a new 8-lane track. We're talking about a new turf field, which we'll get to in the next slide as well. New scoreboard. We're also talking about new tennis courts, which we'll show on an aerial on a site project. And I do, on your way out, I do recommend that anyone, take a quick look at these boards. It might be a little bit easier to see, but we did want to provide kind of a good visual of what the extensive items that are included in Proposition 1, 2, and 3, kind of as a breakdown on the site. So we'll go through it on here, but if you look at these presentation boards up front, you'll see what site looks like with Proposition 1. It looks like what's included with Proposition 2, and then with 3 as well. Sorry, let me just make sure I touched on all of those. Tennis courts. We also include a concession for football. It's really not just football, but really any events that are happening back there. There would be concession stands for any of the spectators with bathrooms, field storage, and then maintenance storage as well. New football goalposts are included in there. And then HS16 is just security lighting for new walkways that would be incorporated as part of that project. HS17 is auditorium air conditioning upgrades. There currently is no air conditioning in the high school auditorium. That would be included. And then moving on to MS5 and 6, that's a new audiovisual system for the middle school. I'm sorry, I could have. These are kind of the pictures. The existing system is just more of a temporary system that's used, and it is used fairly frequently from my understanding. So it would make sense to have a permanent solution. Middle school 6, that's some repair work and some removal work on the site of the middle school. We will be removing some of the older tennis courts that are further away from the building. We will be refurbishing some of the existing tennis courts and then the existing basketball courts as well, and providing something of more of a play area as well, and incorporating some drainage improvements as part of that project. And then number 7 is air conditioning for the middle school auditorium. There's currently no air conditioning there either. So it was important after our last public presentation that we include this slide. There was some questions about the really kind of the definition of turf. We wanted to just make sure that we were clear that the anticipated turf that we are including for the multi-purpose field, it's a synthetic turf system. It's not seed, it's not your dirt system, it is a synthetic turf type of system. This is an example of what it typically would look like. You have a turf, you have your blade material, you have an infill, you have some kind of ballast and a backing, and then you may or may not have a pad underneath, and then you have your base and your drainage. Really what determines exactly what your system looks like, that's something that's determined during the design process after we get some of the geotechnical information back on kind of what the soil composition is and what the drainage looks like. So we were asked a number of the questions came up with, why do a turf field? Why are we posing a turf field? And we discussed it in the groups, many times. And we wanted to include a couple of the advantages. And the biggest thing is playability. It's increased playability. Right now, the field is mainly used by the football team. They have 5 or 8 games a season, and the grass does take some damage from football games, as you can imagine. It kind of leaves it, potentially not in playable condition for any other field, for any other sports. In this case, with the synthetic field, due to the drainage and just the playability of the surface, you can play on these surfaces during potentially, pretty serious rain events, and you can play in them quickly after because of the associated drainage. High use capacity, which I mentioned, you can now share it across other sports within the district. We included some costs. It was important for us to be just transparent of where we're looking at potential future costs. Your yearly maintenance costs of a synthetic turf field is about $8,000. There's not much maintenance that a turf field needs. There's a piece of grooming equipment that's provided with the installation, and that grooming equipment basically fluffs up the material and improves your Gmax rating, and improves your softness feel of the field. If you have a large event or at some point your rubberized material needs to be backfilled, that would be included as well, but that typically doesn't happen. Your replacement costs, your long-term costs, you're looking at about 12 to 15 years. We have other school districts that have fairly minimal usage, and it's 20 years between a replacement. But we expect about 12 to 15 years, depending on usage. You'll have to have some of the turf either replaced or repaired, and your infill replaced at that point as well. So we included those costs. It's about $600,000 of today dollars. We're not sure where the market's going to go in 12 to 15 years from now. But right now we're seeing about $600,000 for a full turf and infill replacement for an existing synthetic turf field. And looking at maintenance costs, I mentioned the $8,000 for the new. The existing is about $14,000 a year. That's for seeding, mowing, your painting, and your irrigation and your utility costs with that irrigation as well, just to give some perspective. Now Proposition 3. Throughout this process and for the last few years, an aquatic center, a school district-owned pool, kind of kept coming up to the table, and we discussed it. Is this something that we want to pose? Is this something we don't want to pose? And we made the decision to include this as its own standalone proposal to confirm how the community feels about it at the end of the day. So we're including the costs. We're looking at about a 15,000 square foot facility. And included in this facility are your air conditioning, your dehumidification, your pool system filtration systems, your chemical systems, obviously locker rooms, showers, bathrooms, your system drainage, your diving board, a 1 meter diving board, eight 25-yard pool, swimming lanes. The depth would be about 5 to 13 feet, and bleachers, of course. There is a architect's rendering in the bottom right hand. We also do have it up here as well. So we did, again, want to include some additional information from our previous board meeting. It was important to me. I misspoke during the last presentation. There was a question from the community on the maintenance costs, the yearly maintenance costs, and whether that included utility costs. And whether that included utility costs or not. And my response at that time was that it did. I apologize, I didn't have the numbers in front of me, but that number did not. We went back in and we looked at the district's costs for their utilities. We did take off some similar projects for their energy usage. And we're estimating right now that your utility costs are about, and that's actually not correct either, I'm sorry, it's about $5,000 per month for your utility costs. There are staffing costs as well. We're anticipating lifeguards, instructors, schedulers, and we're estimating that about $170,000 a year for staffing costs. And then going on to some of our long-term costs, again, it was important to be transparent about anticipated ongoing costs associated with a project of this size. And it's your maintenance costs, about 12 to 15 years again, as some of this equipment it is going to fail. We're recommending you would include about $35,000 every 10 years for maintenance of some pumps, some valves, items like that, some of your lighting as well. It is a corrosive environment, so you do see some of the equipment start to age. Your roofing, of course, you're going to get about 30 years out of a new roof. That's something that you're going to have to replace in the long term as well. And then another high ticket item is your boiler. The boilers get a long duration. It's about 30 years, but it's something to think about, and it is in today's dollar, about $750,000 to replace a boiler of this size. We also wanted to include what the anticipated usage is of the space. That came up as a question kind of fairly frequently. And primarily the pool would be used for swim team practices and competitions. There has been the discussion to offer electives to students, possibly 1 to 3 electives on a school basis, but it would not be part of the regular curriculum at this point. And then they would anticipate community fee-based usage. I don't want to speak for the board, but the sentiment has been that they do want the public to use these beautiful facilities. So this is the slide that is also down below. It may be a little easier to see it up front, but what this slide is showing you is on the left is your existing site. This is what it looks like today. And then on the right side, a couple different things. Proposition 1, we're really just showing the bleachers. The bleachers down here is really the newest component that's included in 1 because of the necessity or the priority. And then boxed in blue are the items that are included in Proposition 2. So that includes everything within the new track area. That includes your concession stand, your comfort station, and that also includes 6 new tennis courts on the other side of the school. Proposition 3 is shown in yellow. That would be in the aquatic center across from the new comfort station. This is just a proposed layout of what that site would look like. An architect's vision, basically showing your comfort station, and then it's showing your aquatic center down here. There would be a plaza area kind of to tie everything together, and then you'd have some site access for bus drop-off. The star is just representing the location of the architect's rendering for his view. So just to give an update of where we are with the schedule, as far as some of the approval phase process or the milestones, right now we are on the public presentation, the second one. We anticipate a third one for the beginning of January 8th, and then the budget vote is scheduled for the 16th of January. And then just a really high-level construction schedule. If the items were to pass, the majority of Proposition 1 and 2 would go up to the state towards the fall of this year, and we would anticipate construction starting at the end of the school year in 26. And then Proposition 3, the Aquatic Center, that would go out approximately an additional year. So the completion of that would be towards the end of 2027. I recommend if there are further questions, or I know I did speak pretty quickly, this information is all on the district's website. That's at the bottom. If you go just to the website and look up capital project, a lot of this information is available at the district's website, and any questions can be mailed directly to that email address shown.
All right, so yeah, I think we can open up the floor to questions related to the capital project. And then just as a note, at 6:30 we will go into our public meeting.
We do also have Ms. Ferguson, who is going to present a bit on the finances, how much this costs. Might be prudent to do that first before we get into too many questions. Or questions while she's setting up would be all right. If anybody doesn't get our community updates, which include information about the school, plus capital project, plus the upcoming budget season. You do not get these emails because you don't have a kid in the school. We still want you to get these emails. So if you want to give us your email address before you leave, we'll send you periodic messages when we have something to say. Solanda.
I had some questions for Prop 1 and then for 2, but I'll hold off on the Prop 2. And one is financial related. On the Lenape roof, does it include any additional insulation, or is it just substrate replacement and membrane replacement?
It does include insulation, yeah. We would,
Additional.
Yeah, we would have to bring up the current code as much as we can, depending on what's available in the structure.
On the financials for the LEDs, are there any incentives or rebates included in the financial analysis for the LED lighting at this point?
So there's not. No.
And on the bleachers, is it larger, smaller, or the same size as existing bleachers? And how are visitors going to be accommodated in design?
So that's a good question, and I'll make sure we address the capacity that's not in there right now. But we're looking at about 1,000 capacity bleachers, so that's about a third larger, I believe, than you have right now. And then to address visitors, we would maintain visitor bleachers on the opposite side with a concrete walkway to get visitors with security lighting.
So the visitors, that's in the capital plan?
Yes. It would be similar, the visitor section would be similar to the existing bleachers on a pad with just an additional concrete walkway with some security lighting.
All right. I have some questions for Prop 2, but I'll wait to the comments.
Thank you, Beth.
My name is Beth Ferguson. I'm with Fiscal Advisors and Marketing. I am the municipal advisor to the school district. And the school district needs a municipal advisor whenever it's entering the capital markets. I assist during this phase, the pre-referendum, also the issuance of any debt, and then ongoing SEC regulations and requirements. As your municipal advisor, I am the one party in the transaction that has a fiduciary responsibility to the district. So I have to act in the district's best interests in all circumstances. Just want to let you know that. My company, we have about 600 clients across the state, 300 of which are school districts from Western New York to the Canadian border down to Long Island. So we're working with a lot of districts on a regular basis. So I'm here tonight to talk about the costs and the tax impact. And while it can be daunting, I'm going to try to make it easy. So the financial overview. What actually, to put it down to its most basic level, is what your debt is, less the building aid, is gonna be your cost to your taxpayers. So debt is issuing notes for 1 year and bonds over the long term. A bond is very similar to a mortgage. It has all the same characteristics. It'll have a term to be determined and interest rates to be determined when we issue those bonds. Certainly, it's far down the road because, as the architect just told you, we're probably not issuing until June of 2026. And we'll be doing bond anticipation notes for the first couple of years during construction and then going to bonds thereafter. So certainly your debt service is going to be based on the amount that you're going to be issuing. And we know what Props 1, 2, and 3 look like, and if they all get passed, we're looking at about $48.5 million. The term of the financing, while these renovations and additions, you could bond for up to 30 years, what is most prudent, and what we always do, is to make sure that you're only issuing debt that corresponds to when you are receiving the building aid. And the state has its limitations on that. So for Proposition 1 and Proposition 2, you will be aided over 15 years. So any bonds that are issued and notes will be issued over that 15-year time period. For Proposition 3, since it's seen as an addition, even though it's an off-site location, you'll get 20 years of building aid on that project, that part of the project. We're looking at interest rates currently estimated. Bond anticipation notes are at 4%, 15-year bonds are at 3.75%, and 20-year bonds are at 4%. Certainly, it looks like interest rates may be coming down, but I don't have that crystal ball. I can't really tell the future. So what we're doing today is going with these interest rates that actually have a cushion of about 0.25%, higher than what the current market is. But certainly, if interest rates come down, that's all the better. Better to be conservative at this juncture. And they will be locked in at the time of financing. And then lastly, we can only hope, but the referendum is going to be a not to exceed amount. So if for whatever reason any part of the project or projects come in under budget, you would only be issuing bonds for your actual project costs. So if you got lucky and something came in under budget, I have seen it happen even in the last couple of years, you would only be issuing bonds for the project costs that were incurred. Building aid. I will try to make this simple. If the state could make it more difficult, I don't know. There are a lot of things that go into the building aid. Just so you know, I mean, it's aid that you're getting based on the buildings that you're building. The maximum cost allowance is something that the state has put into place. Regionally, they have cost estimates. So downstate projects get a little more money. Upstate projects, they figure are going to cost a little less. They have a maximum cost per building that you're allowed to incur. They don't want you building, let's say, the Taj Mahal. They don't want you overbuilding something. And so they're certainly not going to aid you on that. I have seen projects bump up against the maximum cost allowance, or even sometimes exceed it. What happens then is you don't get building aid on anything that's over the maximum cost allowance. The district's current building aid ratio is 60.7%. So we want to say for every dollar in debt, principal and interest, you would get 60.7 cents. That is if you get 100% aid on the total project, but that doesn't usually tend to happen either. The building aid ratio is based on the wealth level of your community, and they compare statewide. So poor communities get higher building aid, and more affluent communities get higher aid. So currently, we have some estimates. For Proposition 1, we're assuming 97% aidability. For Proposition 2, 65% aidability. And for Proposition 3, 9.5% aidability. And that's because classrooms are seen as the most integral part of what a school district does. So classrooms get almost 100% aidability every day. Things like auditoriums, pools, turf fields, your concession stand, they're gonna get much less aid because they're not going to the direct education of the student. You still get some aid, but it's not seen as essential. And then finally, the state has what they do, a state assumed amortization rate. They take all of the bonds that were issued the prior year and they come up with an average. And then they base aid on that interest rate, not necessarily on the interest rate of your bonds. So we're estimating that the interest rate on the bonds right now is 3.75 to 4%. The state is currently aiding at 3.75%. Certainly if interest rates go up or down, that number will also go up and down. So it's kind of a one-to-one, they should balance out. The all-important cost to the taxpayers. What I do want to say, I was here a few weeks ago, these numbers have been revised, and that is because the building aid was not accurately allocated amongst all of the propositions. So a couple of the propositions went up, first two, and then when we get to 3 and 4, there's more of a difference in those numbers than what I had shown previously. The computer program that we have is multi-spreadsheet. It's got 20 spreadsheets. These are just a few of the columns, but what we really want to just focus on is these bottom numbers in yellow, because I think that's what everybody wants to look at. So for Proposition 1, we're talking about $17.59 annually for a house assessed at a full value of $100,000. But I know the district, to be transparent, is showing numbers at an assessed value of $400,000 because that's probably about the average of a home in the district. So if we're looking at that, we're looking at about $70 a year. However, most people, me included, we pay our taxes monthly and our mortgage. So if we look at the monthly increase in tax rate, for Proposition 1, we're looking at $5.90 a month. Similarly, for Proposition 2, since that project is more and gets a little less aid, we're looking at $145 annually for a house assessed at $400,000, and the monthly cost is $12.08 a month increase. Finally, if we go to the prior was Proposition 1, then Proposition 1 and 2 together, not just Proposition 2. That was Proposition 1 and 2 taken together. Now, if we look at Proposition 1 and 3 taken together, we're looking at a total cost of $240 annually for a house assessed at $400,000, or $20 increase a month. And then finally, if the whole shebang gets approved and you're issuing $48.5 million, we're looking at total impact of $312 a month for a house assessed at $400,000, or a monthly increase of $26. So with that, I'm finished, and we're happy to take any questions.
How many senior citizens do you know of that have a mortgage that pay it on a monthly basis?
That's true. It depends. There are senior citizens that have a mortgage, because depending on when they moved into their home, but they might have paid off the mortgage over 30 years or 15 years or 20 years if they were lucky. Some seniors relocate and they do take a mortgage or they don't take a mortgage. It's certainly, that's why I'm giving both the numbers on an annual basis and a monthly basis, but I understand.
The 145 per year was Proposition 1 plus 2?
Yes. That was Proposition 1 plus Proposition 2. Because my understanding is Proposition 1 I don't think you get Proposition 2 or 3 unless Proposition 1 passes.
And 1 by itself was?
$70 annually.
Before we get into questions, I'd just like to state the other obvious part of this. This is for the capital project alone. We are facing challenging budget seasons ahead, as everybody is, and your taxes will go up based upon whatever the state says our 2% tax cap will be. It is likely not to be 2%. It's never 2%. It's probably going to be 2, 3, or 4%. So you will be looking in, start next year, a tax increase of 2, 3, or 4%, something in that ballpark, which is independent of this. This is in addition to that, and I wouldn't want you to think that that wasn't the case.
And they're also gonna have electric buses mandated.
Electric buses will be mandated, yeah.
What is that?
By 2026, you can no longer purchase a diesel bus in this state, and by 2031,
2027.
2027.
And 2035.
2027 and 2035, you will no longer be able to have a diesel bus on the roads at all. So coming down the road is going to be a major project to get EV buses in this school as well as all the other schools in the state.
And don't you think getting the electric buses funded is a lot more important than a swimming pool?
My opinion is not important here. It's really about what you
I'm just
decide.
throwing that out.
It all depends on what the voters decide. Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to know about, is the propositions going to be presented on the ballot as separate entities, or are they going to be as a package?
There's three things that are going to happen, hopefully. Proposition 1 stands alone. Proposition 1 plus Proposition 2 go together because Proposition 2 cannot pass unless Proposition 1 passes. Then
There's three separate propositions on the ballot.
there's
One,
4.
2, and, well,
No,
Go ahead.
only three.
Only
there's three,
There's okay, there are 4 scenarios that could happen.
but it'll be three propositions on the ballot, so you'll be able to, it'll be Proposition 1, yes or no. Proposition 2, yes or no. Proposition 3, yes or no.
Okay.
But one has to pass in order for 2 to pass, or for 3 to pass.
But the propositions are voted on January 16th. Whatever's approved goes into whatever we vote on in May. That's my understanding, right? If you want to vote about these propositions, you have to vote in January.
These propositions you vote on January
In
16th.
January.
Yes.
And whatever gets approved or not approved, we vote on in May.
No. May is completely independent of
That's what I
that.
mean. My understanding is that you're having people vote now because if these don't pass, you have to figure out your budget again, right?
No. Our budget will be impacted down the road by some of these changes, but right now our budget will be voted on in May, completely separate from whether 1, 2, or 3 pass.
And if I may, I think, I'm stepping on the architect too, but the reason for going in January is it's a lengthy process to go through SED, to get to SED, and then for their approvals. This will then put you on a timeline to start construction in June of 26. If you waited until May, you'd probably be looking at another year because you're going to want to be doing construction when the students are in class.
But in voting in January, all right, take into consideration that the senior citizens in the town of New Paltz would have to get to the polls when roads are going to be there. And maybe they won't even be here. Maybe they're, take off and not here in January. One of the things that I have not noticed, all right, you have not advertised where you can get an absentee ballot and how you go about doing that. Should the senior citizens want to vote in January and not have to go through the snow or not be here?
Well, we have advertised it, but apparently you haven't seen it.
No, that's all right, because I already did it on my own.
Excellent. So to answer your question, just to confirm her point, it was done in January. It is being done in January. Otherwise, we would push it all out for another year.
Just
So-
that I spoke to other senior citizens and they said, why?
All right, well, I can encourage them to give me their email address or go to our webpage. We do encourage absentee balloting or early voting
Right.
for the reasons you state.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
I have a few questions, well, not real questions, but clarifications. I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Regarding any kind of sustainable approach to facility upgrade, they were kind of dismissed early on due to cost and other considerations. I want to say that LED lighting called for in Proposition 1, is a step in the right direction. I would have thought we would have started that quite a bit long time ago, but I'll take it now. Air conditioning. My understanding is that we want any air conditioning improvements at all. That's in Proposition number 2. So in order to get the air conditioning improvements for the auditorium, we have to vote on the athletic fields, which certainly need upgrades as well, but that also includes artificial turf, which some of us may have an issue with. If we don't like that, we don't get air conditioning in the auditoriums either. Is that correct?
It is correct.
And not only don't we get air conditioning in the auditoriums, there's no consideration of any air conditioning in classrooms. When the governor just 2 days ago signed a bill stating that if the temperature gets above 88 degrees, we can't have kids in those classrooms. So I think that's a consideration that we have either eliminated or should definitely include going forward. Regarding the pool, I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it would be great for our swim teams and swimming lessons for the kids in the district. But should we be asking our residents who just voted for an administration based on the fact that they can't seem to afford to pay for food and housing for their own families? There is no statement at all, and I would really like to hear one from the district as to how they're going to handle the mandatory transition to an electrified school bus fleet. This could be an astronomical cost while taxpayers are still paying for this project. I would also like to see, if we do get a chance to review this again at some point, that a committee be formed by the district of faculty members, students, community members, and administration to make up a sustainability committee to bring creative and environmentally sound solutions to some of these maintenance and ongoing capital needs. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, the cost of this capital project has, besides the building aid from the state, has any investigation about any funding or consideration of the Inflation Reduction Act? The monies from the Inflation Reduction Act has monies for schools to fund environmentally sound projects. So has anyone investigated, besides the building aid from the state, any other funding sources that can pay for some of these projects?
So I'll answer that one. So we have, and they're all very good, valid points that you're bringing up, and we've looked at a number of the items. And the answer is that we will continue to do so. As we present these construction values to the community, we want to be completely transparent. And a lot of these items, we do not know if we can rely on them as a funding source. Since our construction time frame is fairly far out, some of this funding just may not be available, but we continue to look at them. There are typically utility incentives for LED lighting, and that as we design the project, we will look into that. And like Ms. Ferguson mentioned previously, if we don't have to borrow all of the money because there are these additional incentives that we are able to use, then that money would not be borrowed, and we would use the either grants or the other incentives available.
Is there a possibility
for the pool or the aquatic center to generate money? Can it be rented out for club teams or regional?
There is a possibility of that and also of the track. If these are approved and we build these beautiful facilities, there are those who will want to use them. We pay money to go to invitationals at different schools for both track and swimming. And it is possible that that organizations will want to hold their large events at our beautiful facilities. So there's possibility for money, but it's not in here anywhere because I can't guarantee it.
But is it something that you've researched to say like on a monthly?
Could I jump in, Steve?
Of course.
As far as the pool, I know the local swim club in town would rather pay us $22,000 than pay SUNY. And Valley Central they host invitational swim meets, and clubs pay $10,000 for Saturday and Sunday, and $12,500 for Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday. I'm certain, we're not in the business necessarily of hosting events, but we certainly would be in that capacity to do so. And clubs in the swim community, they're certainly inquiring about that, yes.
Isn't that the thinking behind the 8-lane pool versus a 6-lane pool that
Correct.
has bigger meets? Valley Central does a lot of those meets, and a lot of people, I think even people come in and there's lessons, there's all kinds of community things that happen at that pool. And it's one of the only pools in the area that you can do something like that because it's a big pool.
The district has a desire to have people use our facilities, including what might be a pool. And so certainly that's something we look at.
Every step of the way, this has been more than that. It started about 4 years ago, the discussion of a capital project. And for dozens upon dozens of meetings, and maybe 100 facilities meetings, school board meetings, the school board has always spoke out extensively publicly about allowing as much community involvement as we could. We're not promising schedules and stuff now, but the desire behind everything was, to include the community. Physical wellness.
Well, do you want to finish your question?
Yes, but I would like to come back to the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, and the direct pay incentive pay. While it's true that the future is uncertain as to whether they will remain in place, it could remain in place or it might go away. Solar panels go in very quickly. They're not a long lead project, right? They're perhaps weeks long to install once you sign a contract. It could be weeks to get your system installed. So the question of whether or not the incentive pay would be available is not really how many years out are we talking, but rather, do we think those dollars will still be there in the short term? We don't know the answer to that question. It could go away. But it was a decision not to include the Inflation Reduction Act dollars into, I think there was an ROI done, a spreadsheet ROI. I have not seen one. One's never been distributed. So it's unclear that we actually know why we decided not to include up to 40% of the cost of the solar panel projects into our decision making. That was a decision we made about excluding it. The question is whether or not that was a good decision or not. But that's now water over the dam at this point because the propositions don't have solar panels on. But I do think it's important to recognize that the Inflation Reduction Act is not a grant. You simply do the project, do its specifications, and apply for your taxes, and you get it. So it may be there, it may not be there. My question is regarding Proposition 2. I wanted to ask about the planning for rain events are no longer uncommon. With the crumb rubber, the potential of it being washed out from a rain event, 12 inches of rain, what's been incorporated in the design to prevent that crumb rubber from going into the adjacent wetlands? Have we designed in a retention system for the crumb rubber?
So, the response is that, so we haven't designed anything at this point. The system, the drainage of the system is determined on kind of the geotechnical studies that will be done if it is approved. And then we do work closely, and we have to get the approval of DEC and then ultimately the DEP as well. So we adhere to their standards to maintain the site.
Where does the field currently drain to?
Right now, it drains to just grade.
So meeting the lowest point in the property,
Yeah.
which would be the wetlands, adjacent wetlands.
I'm not 100% sure. Some of it could cascade off to your parking lot, but eventually, at some point, they're making it to the wetlands.
Very good. On usage, we've been unclear as to, I think we've been unclear whether or not our usage for the artificial turf is going to be practices and games or just games. And we've also, in terms of if life was just games, because the more we use it, the more likely we'll replace it sooner, the shorter its life will be. So if it was just games, I think this current season we had 3 home games for football. I think we had 6 boys soccer home games and about 6 or 7 girls. So do we think the range of competitions, perhaps 20 competitions in the fall for the artificial turf, or are we planning to use it for practice as well?
I think you could use it for as much as you want to use it for. Remember, you also have JV teams who would love to get a shot at that field as well as modified. So it'll be a decision by the athletic department to decide how much it's used and who's it used by.
But I think the varsity and the JV kind of play at the same time. The teams come together. So it wouldn't be, I don't think they play back to back.
They often play back to back.
So we think practice is what part of the usage would be.
I think it would be minimal. I think you're going to have so many teams who would like to play on that field that it'll be used regularly for competition.
And by teams, you mean other than high school teams? Other than our New Paltz Central High School teams? You mean community teams?
I don't mean that. I mean varsity and JV.
So in the fall, that's football, soccer, and the 2 soccer teams?
Yes.
Boys and girls?
Lacrosse.
That's spring.
Yeah.
So that's the usage. That's the operational usage we would intend.
I think that probably would be used sometimes for practice, but the priority would be games.
Okay. So on the auditorium air conditioning, is that planned to be heat pumps or air compressors or compressors?
So the system, again, hasn't been designed completely. The anticipation right now would be a rooftop mounted unit, with a compressor system, yeah.
So,
And
so
potentially
only cooling, not heating?
It would most likely be cooling and heating. It would replace what's there now.
So they would be heat pump units?
Not completely. We would probably use the hot water system that's already supplying the rooftop unit for the heating, and we would incorporate that into the rooftop unit. Okay, but again, it hasn't been designed, so if we go that way and our HVAC engineers find a more efficient, cost-effective way to do it, they would move in that direction.
Very good. And finally, for the new building at the stadium, or next to last question, new building at the stadium, what is the intended heating and cooling plans for the concession, bathroom, storage? What kind of heating and what fuel type is used for that?
Again, I would have to defer. That's more of a design issue. We have to have the discussions if it does get approved with the local utility companies to see which utility company is offering more incentives or better rates, and then the technologies for the buildings that we're using.
And finally, does the stadium, there is a sort of an entrance plan for the stadium? Is there something intended to make it look attractive as far as an archway or entranceway, to give it the appearance of a stadium? Is there any artistic rendering of what you'd see to enter the stadium?
So we don't have a rendering. That's something that we would discuss during the design concept. As we get the information back and we start designing systems, we then hone in on the budget. Depending kind of on where we stand with the budget, we would look to design, if that's kind of the desire of the committees that we're working with, then by all means we would incorporate something.
I will make the suggestion that the lighting system that's there, with the wooden poles, was a donation from community members. If that could be incorporated, there's also a stone monument there to note that donation from community members. If that could be incorporated into the entranceway, I think that's a good way to continue to recognize what was given from the community back in the early 80s.
I had a question about related to Proposition 1. This isn't a cost question. The last meeting that I was at in the auditorium, I asked a question about how much of the $17 million ask included improvements to or introduction of physical access security measures. I was told that there were, I believe earlier this evening, someone stated that there were no life safety items in any of the capital improvement plans. Given that, and given recent events with unauthorized access to one of our schools in the third of 2 years, with no life safety items included, can the board, and at that meeting, Superintendent Hickey stated to me that you didn't think the schools were unsafe. So can you share what metrics the school or the board uses to substantiate that comment?
Well, I'll rephrase what I think I said to you last time, which was our buildings are locked. We have no knowledge that we have any knowledge of any problems with any of our buildings being secure. Certainly, we could talk about the wisdom of putting film over windows. That's something that some schools do. But as far as our buildings being secured, they are secured. All the exterior doors are alarmed in case they were propped open. So I do feel the buildings are safe. However, if human error comes into play and we don't adequately check people coming in and out of the building, if we let people come in without having a reason to be there, then human error certainly can decrease our safety and throw out the window all of the good things that we have done with securing our building. But I feel that our buildings are safe. That's my opinion.
So what metrics do you use to substantiate that comment? What do you measure and benchmark against? And how often do you do it?
People can't get in.
What metrics do you use, sir, to measure against to substantiate that comment? And how often do you do it?
How often do I do it? I check the doors. We have our facilities committee checks the doors. The doors operate properly. The windows operate properly. So we're pretty confident that that's the case. We're confident that our alarm system works. We evaluate that frequently.
And yet, in the past year, you've had at least two breaches. One in April and one just...
Three,
yeah.
Yep. But that's not because of the doors not working. Probably that's because people have let in strangers who should not have done so. That's human error, and you can't fix that by building better doors.
Different type of door.
This is really, my question isn't centered on specifically at this point the doors, because we know that you're not doing anything to make improvements with the capital improvement plan. But coming off of that discussion, I'm trying to figure out what the district does. Safety is everyone's responsibility. It's everyone in this room, it's everyone at that table up there, it's the teachers, the facility managers, everyone. So yes, human error comes into play, but if there's no measurements that are reported out and discussed and talked about on a regular basis, no one thinks about it until something bad happens or something almost bad happens. So I'm asking the board, set up a committee, figure it out, start measuring, come up with benchmarking, look around the country, look around our communities, the different schools, similar size, bigger, smaller, establish benchmarks and measure and report out so people are constantly hearing that you're doing something. At least you're looking at it and you're aware of what others are doing and thinking about what can be done here. Failing to plan is planning to fail. That's all I'd say.
Any other questions?
I have another concern. I'm noticing that, like, on Proposition 3, there's a lot of maintenance and staffing costs and things that I don't believe are allocated into the actual proposition, but would be considered in the future budgets that we're already struggling with, that we're already in the red, we're already making a lot of cuts. We're making a lot of cuts to things like mental health services and other social supports, and that for the students that aren't part of athletics, there's not much benefit to a lot of what's being proposed. So I'm just noticing that there's inequality in terms of how we're taking care of our student population, how we're taking care of our staff too, because we're cutting certain staff that provide services, and we're in favor of adding potentially maintenance and lifeguards and other kinds of staff that we haven't balanced our budget on in other ways. And I'm just naming that I have a concern around that. Because it seems to me that we're putting a lot towards our athletes and what's happening for the rest of the students in the district.
You're correct. We've had 2 difficult budget years in a row. We've eliminated over 25 positions. We're facing another difficult budget season where we will be eliminating more positions, and any costs added in any of these will make balancing the budget more difficult in the future.
It seems like a small point compared to other things that have been brought up, but I missed some of the earlier meetings because my job basically usually has been working at this time. I work in athletics over at Vassar College. Someone raised the point of the pool and possible revenue. Pools generate a lot of revenue. There will always be people looking to rent your pool. Whether that will overcome the cost of staffing in future budgets, I can't say. But I can say that your pool will definitely be a high demand resource by clubs, by other teams in the area. Concerns about the turf field. While I aesthetically love grass as well, the reality is you will get so much more bang for your buck out of a turf field. It's usability, it's year-round functionality, the ability of the teams to play, the impact of one team's performance destroying the field for other teams ceases to be a factor. And when you're talking about the runoff, the way those fields are designed, that rubber is not going to leave the field because water drains down. But if you have a grass field that you're putting tons of chemicals on to maintain that monoculture, that runoff becomes a major issue as well. So are they environmentally perfect? No, but I would say compared to the cost and the chemicals you need to maintain a grass field, you're getting a lot more out of your turf field.
I would also say that with those turf fields, no one's speaking about the diseases that come from it. MRSA is a high-level infectious disease that comes about with the use of turf fields. I see nothing in any of the reports that suggest that or include that in it.
None of our reports are, at least my reports, are in any way saying that turf is good or turf is bad. In the internet, there's research that you can find any research you want that will point in either direction you want. So we're leaving that to the community to make their own decisions about whether artificial turf is good or bad based on all that they read, and they should make their decision and vote accordingly.
But I think you have a fiduciary responsibility and a responsibility to the health of your students to do that.
To do what?
To understand what comes along with the turf field, the things that are not beneficial to it. When you put something out, you should be putting out the pros and the cons, not just I want. Everything should come with it, what the advantages are and what the disadvantages are. And that hasn't come through any of this stuff. It's just what they want.
I apologize if this is outside the scope, but someone said there's no plan for air conditioning for the classrooms? And I know I'm late in the game maybe to bring that up.
That's correct. We looked at the price of air conditioning for classrooms. We looked at the price of continuing to use the portable ones that are low quality that we use in some classrooms, and we looked at the price of putting air conditioning in large group spaces felt it was not cost effective to put air conditioning in every classroom, but it was cost effective to put air conditioning in some large group areas so that students would have a place to go if the temperature got to the point of 88 degrees where they were no longer allowed to be in the classrooms.
But there's no other in between, no way to cool down. Just, I happen to be a classroom teacher
Well-
out here, but I've suffered the trauma
Right.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
classroom, and it's getting hotter and hotter every year. So I kind of thought, I feel a little foolish that I didn't notice it before. I just figured there was some plan to make the classrooms a little more humane.
There are classrooms that have the portable air conditioners. They're just not very good
But they will be allowed to use those portable air conditioners?
in some cases. Rebecca?
Is there a reason behind why the air conditioning in the auditoriums is in Prop 2 and not in Prop 1?
Well, Prop 1 was considered to be safety and energy efficiency, the LED part of the lighting part of it.
But is, given global warming and the trend towards warmer and warmer days and the governor's mandate, isn't having a space in the buildings that students can still be in, wouldn't that be considered a safety piece?
Could be.
Is there any room to wiggle what's on which proposition at this point, or is that set before the vote? And we either have to vote it all out, or
There's no room to change these propositions at this point.
The reason behind that is just because we go through an environmental assessment process of the items that we're including.
it's just a shame that the air conditioning isn't in Prop 1.
If anyone would like to share their email address before they go, I'll be happy to add you to the
Yes,
list.
I would. Who do I give it to?
I'm going to give it. Sandy, do you have a folder or a folder, a palette pad that you can use? We'll pass the pad around. Looks like Ms. Kaczynski's got it.
Yeah.
Hello, Mayor.
Oh, yes, we are, and that's the spirit of we're trying to stay. Tax
Regardless.
Now you want me to sign something?
Our kids
They said the board meeting hasn't started.
And nice people.
I think it's going to be down the long line.
I should have gotten the second page of my phone.
Well, it's up to you. Say that you stay for the moment. I'll be part of the board meeting. Stay for an hour.
Now we have all the
So you kind of see those. So beyond capital project, he's always sending out information about upcoming events, here or arts, or just general, it's general need to know for.
Thank you.
I'm not parent. I could still go on.
Of course, yes. Yeah. That's for all,
I'll have you write it on.
Thanks much.
Just write it on that paper. Yep.
We were. We'll give them back. Thank you, appreciate it.
That's the problem. All spring sports are in the same place.
Thank you, take care.
You will be so fun. Thanks.
Matt, is this yours?
No, I poured you, oh, you're an I said, yeah, I bet he's gonna want a glass of water.
Oh, it's locked?
Yeah.
It's not something else.
Cameras are.
I did get one of these.
This key, did you get very many emails?
My parents are in the early 80s. And they both Is that the email list? I have another name over here.
These are awful.
Oh, no, they're like mentalistas.
So yeah, it's very.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Nate, what's happening? Go with this one, go with the sprinkles. Thank you, Linda. What's new? Oh, we're just going. Maybe
Alrighty, we're going to continue on here. So item 3, agenda changes. Can I please get a motion to accept the agenda changes, which are the revision of items 8.1, 12.1, and 12.2?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to item 4, 4.1, the student representative report. Nate.
Hi. We have the high school pep rally on Friday. I think everybody's really excited. This is the first time that we've done a winter pep rally. So we're kind of trying to see how that works out. You know, as a student government representative as well, I'm really excited to be able to use the gym for something because we really get that privilege a lot. We have a boys varsity basketball game Friday against Sororities, and then a girls varsity basketball game tomorrow against Ellenville. But otherwise, we're kind of wrapping up for the holidays.
Thank you very much. All right, takes us to the first public comment for agenda items. Sandy, could you have the sheet? So public comment guidelines. There'll be a public comment sign-up sheet at each board meeting. Persons wishing to address the board should sign in with their name and town of residence prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to present their comment. In-person public comment will conclude at the end of 30 minutes. Speakers will be called to present their comments in the order in which they have signed up. The board requests that the first public comment period be limited to comment on agenda items only. The second public comment period will be open to comment on non-agenda items. If a member of the public wishes to submit a public comment via email, emails must be received by the district clerk no later than 12 p.m. the day of the board meeting. The individual may request that their comment be read aloud at the meeting. Comments read aloud will be read in the order in which they were received and will be read after in-person public comments have concluded. In the interest of time, email public comments read aloud may be limited. When feasible, written public comments received via email that are not read aloud will be printed and made available at the meeting for public review and upon request of the district clerk. Board President reserves the right to limit remarks from the public which are repetitive or offensive. Comments submitted by email that are repetitive by nature may be summarized. Public comments may not identify any person by name or position. Comments submitted by minors that contain sensitive information will not be read aloud or made available for public review. Public comments are not meant to be a dialogue, but rather a time for the board to hear comments from the public. At the conclusion of the public comment period, the board may, at their discretion, offer comments or ask clarifying questions related to topics or issues raised by members of the public. Any sense?
Nope.
All right. Takes us to item 6.1, superintendent update.
All right, thank you. I'd like to recognize Diane Tripp, longtime secretary in the middle school. and she will be retiring right after the new year starts. So thank you, Diane, for your many years of service. I'd like to thank Nicole Vitale, who spent some time as our assistant elementary principal and did a fine job. We appreciate Nicole and her services. And we'd like to welcome Josh Bate, who is the person who's taking over the role on a permanent basis. So welcome to the school, Mr. Bate. Lots we could talk about. Safety would be one. I'm sure the public knows that we had an intruder who entered the building on Friday around noon, and this person was let in by a staff member. So that's very inappropriate and unfortunate, and very sorry that happened. We do talk about safety a lot. We've put in a lot of safety procedures and practices since April, but they're only as good as those who follow them. So we need to be very careful. We need to make sure that we follow all the safety practices. We do safety training every year, but of course, if it's not working, we'll do it some more. So I sent out an email to all faculty and staff today explaining safety practices in general, specific answers to specific questions that they had recently, and all the faculty and staff will read this, but also the principals will be doing some retraining in faculty meetings about safety, and we'll be talking to students too about the importance of not letting people into the building. So I just want the community to know that we're sorry that this happened, and we'll continue to work on it. We've already begun doing so. Any questions on safety before I go on?
I have a quick question. Now, I know this would be problematic. And staff could swipe in at multiple places to come in the building, but maybe we could talk about having one access point the entire day to come in the building. So, in the high school, you can't enter the gym, can't enter anywhere else, only through the main office.
Well,
same with the middle school, that's it. I mean, I know it'd be an inconvenience for staff, but one entry point.
Well, that was actually in the update I wrote. In April, when we first made some rules about that, we said one entry point, and we got some feedback from the community, from the staff members who basically said, my room's here, and the back door is where all the parking lots are, and to walk all the way around is a lot of work. So we said, all right, we'll let you come in any entrance that you need to come in through that is got a buzzer on it. But now we changed it a little bit today. So the new policy, which staff members you'll read, I'm sure, is that in the morning you can enter through the bugged or the alarmed spot where you can use your badge to get in, wherever that is most convenient. But during the school day, nobody should be going in or out of any doors. They should be, if you are a staff member who's leaving, you come and you sign out in the office and you leave through the main entrance. But of course, there's going to be exceptions to this. So that's the rule. During the school day, you can only use the front entrance. But, of course, the gym classes, they're not all going to go around the front. Some are going to have to go out the back, for recess in the elementary. So there are going to be exceptions to the rule. If the custodian's bringing garbage out to the dumpster, he's not going to go around the front, come around. So there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but that is the new rule, which is if you don't have a pre-approved reason to leave or enter through any of the doors other than the main entrance during the school day, you cannot use those other entrances.
I have a question about the alarm system on those doors.
Yep.
How is that set? You were mentioning something about it being changed, where it could be larger amounts of minutes for when we know they're going to recess.
Yep.
Those doors that are going to no longer have access during the day, could they be set to have an immediate alarm when they're open during that portion of the day?
Could be. I'll put that to the district safety committee and see if that is something they want to consider. But yes, we have alarms on all the doors, and we've talked to people in advance to say, okay, well, this door, what's reasonable? 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. And so those are set appropriately, and if somebody props it open longer than that, the message goes to the office of the administration, and they look into it. And if it's being a problem regularly, then you look at it and you say, maybe I need more time. Your idea, I think, is possible. Yeah.
Two things. I really appreciated the faculty and staff kind of frequently asked questions document you shared with us. Is there any way to have some of this that isn't sensitive shared with the whole school community, just so alumni, parents, the public is aware of some of these rules about the gentrants and
Yes.
can we do that?
You're right, some of that stuff is confidential to the the operations of the building, but my next community update will certainly have a section on safety and what steps we've taken since Friday to, fine tune our methods.
Okay. And then in one of the sections you mentioned that students are free to ask an employee to see the ID card.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if, could we do something where we have planned like stealth drills where people who aren't supposed to be there are sent in, and can we do something like that, like a mock?
Entrance test.
Yeah,
We can if you would like us to do that.
it would be fun.
Fun?
Good.
It would not be
For the
fun.
students, for the students, maybe.
So you're saying, if I understand you correctly, have a stranger go in with no badge in the building somewhere and see if anybody stops them.
When try, yeah.
That might be fun, actually.
Outside board member or somebody.
That's an interesting idea.
Steve, I was wondering what kind of signage is there at each building? Regarding visitors, because two of our incidents that we had since April involved, I believe, alumni who wanted to stop by and see their old stomping grounds. And how does a visitor who has no idea, they're completely out of touch with what's going on in schools these days, they graduated 10, 15, 20 years, 30, 40, 50 years ago, how do they know to go to the front entrance and that they're not allowed to just walk in the door?
A valid question. I think we have good signage, but obviously we need to make sure we have great signage. So we will look into that.
Yeah, because I could see how it could be an honest mistake for somebody who doesn't understand the procedures we have.
Yep, and I think it was in this case.
Yeah.
Yep, we will make sure our signage is perfect.
Maybe even a link from the main website about what to do if you want to visit the school. I don't know if it exists.
Could be. I don't know if that exists. You'd like web page information about how to visit the school.
Yeah, very interesting.
All right, can do that.
Yeah, I think especially, as soon as you start reaching the far end of the parking lot by the field, but you got that entrance, that people come into to get in the gym. I probably use that entrance for events more than I'm rarely at this building, so I rarely have to use that for entrance. So if I wasn't aware that I need to go to the front office to enter the building, I could see somebody who hasn't been here in 25 years just to park where they've always parked and to try to go in the door that they've always gone in for as long as they've ever been at this building. The further away you get from that main entrance, the signage I think is important.
Yep, and that's exactly what happened.
And I think this idea of welcoming people to use the facilities is great, but if you just hear a little snippet like, oh, the track's open, and somebody shows up during the school day and starts using the facilities, I mean, it's all great. I just think maybe a little care of, oh yeah, you can use it, but, just make it clear, like you have to sign up, you have to be part of a group, which I think is happening, but just so people are aware, when the board says we want everyone to use the facilities, we mean like at the appropriate time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Logan and I are working on scheduling a tour that we can go on together and check the signage throughout the district, so make sure that happens soon. All right, safety, that was one of the topics, yes. Let's see. I did want to give a shout out to the concerts. We've had some great concerts recently. The middle school, high school, Lenape had the concerts last week. School of Rock had a little concert after school today for mostly middle school teachers. There's another concert after the new year. So just my compliments to the music department. We have an outstanding music department. Our students really accomplished great things, and so I'm very proud of them. Once upon a time, we were brought a suggestion from the athletic community about how to get an athletic trainer. I know the athletic trainer has been a much discussed topic this year. And so the school district has looked at options for how to get an athletic trainer. Obviously, we have financial difficulties, and people have lobbied to you to have an athletic trainer put in the 2025-2026 budget, and that's certainly something you'll have to decide. But the athletic community came out and gave you a suggestion about a web page or an app that could be used to hire per diem sub-athletic trainers. And so we looked at it, discussed it with Mr. Warren, gave Mr. Warren the go-ahead and put out 10 games onto this app and to see what we get for people. Obviously, in this, we'd have to be specific with what our requirements are. We would require them to be fingerprinted, and we get to establish the pay rate. So we're going to start with $50 an hour and see if we get somebody. I'm sure Mr. Warren is working on this, but at this point, I don't know that we've found an organization that we know that is local or anywhere near us that uses this service. So it'll be very interesting to find out if this service is operational in this area and to see what sort of people we have responding. But I wanted the athletic community to know that we did listen to your idea, and it was a good idea. And Mr. Warren has to go ahead to start advertising for people. So we hope to find out soon if anybody will be taking our offered positions. Questions on athletic trainers?
It's exciting if it works.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great if it worked. Cell phones have been talked about in the past. I know there is interest by at least some of the board members, maybe all of the board members, to institute a bell-to-bell cell phone ban. And so I reached out to the Bethlehem Central School District, which is one of the districts that presented at Disconnected, which was a forum put forth by a variety of groups to talk about why bell-to-bell cell phone bans work in schools. And so I've presented to you a Google Doc where you asked some questions, and I provided the answers that were given by Bethlehem. So I know I did that today, so you may not have had a chance to look at them. But in general, I'll summarize what I was told from Bethlehem, which was they decided to do it. They felt it was the right thing to do. They imposed a bell-to-bell ban. They did purchase the Yonder pouches, which they have been happy with as a way of. Yonder pouches are the kids come in, they put their phone in this pouch, they lock it, and then at the end of the day they unlock it. So they keep the phone with them all day long. They unlock it. They're not cheap, so keep that in mind. Their middle school, like our middle school, just has kids keep their phones in their locker. They decided that they were going to do this. They told the community they were going to do this. They had some community forums where the parents got together came to ask questions, kind of like what we had tonight. And, it was well received by the community. There were certainly dissenters, but once it was in place, the dissenters were less. They feel it has been a great benefit to their district in that kids are more focused and they're not on the phones all the time. And just talking to other people, the behaviors have gone down. Bad behaviors have gone down. And so they're pretty pleased with the way it worked. So, they didn't suggest starting in the spring, starting mid-year. I would caution you about trying to start mid-year, but I think that if it is the will of the board to make this decision, you can make that decision to start in September. If it's the will of the board to have a survey of parents and students to see what they think, tell me and I will make a survey for you. If it is your desire to simply have some forums, to have parents come in and give their opinions and students give their opinions before you decide, that is possible too. So if you have any guidance for me on how or if you'd like to proceed with this endeavor, I'm all ears.
Sooner than later. I think probably after into January, maybe once the capital project vote is behind us. I think that would be a good focus area.
What would you like to? Would you like a survey?
I think we should do like a multi-pronged approach. I mean, we do have survey results about cell phones already from our district survey we did at the end of the summer. Wouldn't hurt to put out a cell phone specific survey. It might get more people to participate if it had a more targeted like topic like that. So I don't see any harm in putting out a survey for sure. But I certainly would want to hold, forums so the public can come out and voice their opinion. We can hear from community members, staff members, students, anybody who's got an opinion on it.
All right, let me make a survey for you and send it to you for your feedback.
Okay.
And I can also maybe present to you an idea of when we could start off a board meeting with a forum on cell phone policy.
What was the cost of the bags?
I'd have to look that up.
I remember it was about 30.
We had
$30 a bag.
Yeah.
We had a Yonder Pouch presentation here several years ago, and they came in and presented. It was around 40 grand. And there were some problems with it. I'm getting kids in and out of the building a little bit more time consuming. And this is just me, but we have lockers. The kids don't use them, that's okay. There should be enough, because at one time there was 800 kids in the building and they all had a locker. Put your phone in your locker.
Yeah, you would, if you decided to go that route, you would be able to assign a locker to each student, and they could keep their cell phones in their locker. Of course, you change the way we decorate for Christmas, though. So our decorations are all over the lockers. It's nobody uses.
Kind of a workaround. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, the board, everybody might feel differently.
Well, it said in the document that Steve shared, see maybe you can elaborate, that they have, like we do, a middle school phone locker policy that works fine, but it sounded like for whatever reason, their high schoolers need it in the pouches.
The reason was because they are much like us. Kids don't use their lockers in the high school, they carry their bags around.
Is it a time situation where they can't get to their lockers in time, or?
It's not cool.
Maybe
just won't use them.
It's not cool to use your lockers when you're in high school.
I mean, I don't think, I came into the high school and that's just how we did it. And I mean, we have 3 minutes between passing time, and the high school is certainly smaller than the middle school, but I think it would be a little bit of a stretch sometimes, for me, I think personally.
I mean, it's been 20 years since I was in high school, but I don't know, 9th grade, 10th grade, we transitioned to block scheduling. And I can even recall that move to block scheduling. I got out of my car in the morning, I got the books in my backpack that I needed for the day, and I had plenty of space, and I went and had my classes, and the next day I would switch to whatever was appropriate for that day. So I think also block scheduling makes it a lot easier to get by with one bag.
I mean, kids use their lockers somewhere up until around 2010, and then it kind of phased out in a lot of school districts.
Well, they're not carrying books around nearly as much.
Yeah, that's also they have Chromebooks that have digital books.
If you're gonna have to use your locker because you can't have a backpack, then you've got to plan ahead. That's all. It can be done. But I don't think we're talking about banning backpacks.
No.
I think we're talking about having a place. If we say you can't have your cell phone with you, and we got to give them a secure place to do it. So if the only thing they put in their locker is their cell phone, and they keep their books with them, I don't think we're talking about that. I think that's okay.
And things can, fluctuate and change over time. I mean, it's true, we have lockers and we could potentially start out using the lockers as the place where we keep our cell phones. And then if that didn't work, consider the younger pieces as a plan B. We don't have to jump right to the younger, and that's something we should probably discuss at greater length before we decide on it, I think. But one thing that I wanted to add is that I think that it's important that we include, whether it's in the surveys or the forums or whatever information we're putting out, the digital literacy piece and the media literacy piece as part of this plan somewhere. The last part of the conference was all about making sure that we are informing our students on how to navigate media, navigate the digital devices that they have. Because they're using them outside of school, there's some problems that are occurring because of maybe never having been taught the safest ways to use them. And then of course, when they leave school, they're getting them, right? They're using them. So a lot of what was talked about during the conference was just like all of this programming and all of this, all of the digital literacy that they taught their students along with saying like, here, we're giving you an opportunity to not use your phone because we're recognizing that that's better for your health. But also we're recognizing that this is now a big part of your life and like, how can we teach you how to use it in the best way?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that in middle school essentials, which is good.
That's probably something we should be doing, whether we ban cell phones or not.
Absolutely.
Anything else on cell phones? Okay. We have scheduled a board retreat, scheduled for January 18th. Changed the time slightly to what I advertised. We would now start at 9:30 and go to 1:30. It'd be a retreat facilitated by the New York State School Boards Association. We'd probably retreat right here in the district office conference room unless you want to go somewhere else. The person would be presenting on both responsibilities of school board members, proper communication between school board members and superintendents, the reasons for and how to do board self-evaluations, and if time permits, some goal setting. So I believe you're all on board. All right.
This is a private retreat.
It is a private retreat. Yep. All right, great. And then the last thing would be goal setting. Last time we were together, you showed some appreciation for the goals that had been generated, but you wanted more discussion on how they would be evaluated, what you would be looking at, what success looks like, and what a timeline might be. So we added those pieces to your shared doc about your goals. And again, you probably haven't had a chance to look at them, but if you'd like to look at them or ask me any questions or tell me if I've got it right, that would be great. Or you can, kind of table this until the board retreat if you want. But do you have another board meeting? Board meeting in January, beginning of January?
We do the 15th.
15th.
The day before the
Well, anyway, those are your options. We've added to the document for you.
I looked over the document that you sent us, and I feel as though we can do even better in terms of identifying specific timelines for things. For example, one of the strategies for improving academic rigor is monitoring, performing a curriculum review. That's a strategy for both horizontal and the vertical alignment goals. And I see that the timeline is very general. It's like 2 to 3 years for the horizontal alignment and 3 to 5 years for the vertical. But I think the board is looking for something specific, like what are we waiting on before we perform a curriculum review? When can that first strategy start happening? Do you know what I mean? I understand that the total, job well done might be 2 to 3 years from now, or we're having something flowing where we're feeling confident that we're reaching that goal. But I'm just wondering, the strategies themselves, can we assign, at least with the step 1, when does that begin? And if we can't identify when that should begin, why is that?
All right, well, we can try to do that. That's not really a goal, though. Your goals should tell us what you want done, and we should then tell you how we're going to do that. We can tell you how we're going to do that. We should tell you how we're going to do that, but I guess I would just say that's not really part of the goal. That might be information you want.
Yeah.
It's not really part of the goal.
The goal document.
Yes.
Right. I think there's a general sense in board. You can let me know what your thoughts are on this. Just that we're so eager to see movement on these goals that we at least want to see, or at least set a timeline that is shorter than, because these goals have many components to them. So I think we want to know, how's it going? So, maybe if you don't want it as part of the goals document, a periodic review, more than just once or a couple times a year, checking in, I don't know how often, once a month or something, to let us know what progress are we making.
I think that's very reasonable. You want to know how we're doing, we should tell you how we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's part of the goals, but we can certainly do that.
I mean, I'm fine with, personally, I don't speak for the board, but I'm fine with making the goals document more high level And as long as we have some kind of check-in periodically on what progress we're making.
How about if you make your goal document more high level and you say, in the metrics or what we're looking at, you'll get a report on progress every 2 months or 3 months or whatever you want.
Yeah.
We'll do whatever you want, but we got to know what you want.
I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around it as well, but the process is you set a goal in the beginning of the academic year at some point, right? You let admin and staff work through the goals, and at the end of the academic year, you review the goal. Is that kind of the big picture thinking? And then hopefully during the year, you get some updates of like how we're doing with the goal and how we're meeting maybe individual steps of each goal.
Right. So I guess it gets a little murky because we don't want to step on our administrators' toes. What does it look like to make progress on these goals? You know what I mean? And how do we know that we're getting there? Because a lot of these goals are very ambitious and they do take longer than one academic year. So we're not expecting we set them in September and we see the goal realized in June. But given that these are longer term but very important goals, I think the board just is eager to be following up and making sure that we're seeing movement toward the goal.
Perhaps if we could see some kind of overview of what the timeline would look like for a 2 to 3 year goal, a 3 to 5 year goal. What are the phases? What are the steps?
Yeah, big thing is simply not getting to the finish line and going, no, we didn't get there for whatever reason. To be able to identify that early on, course correct is, I think, to my mind, the benefit of being agile about it.
Yeah, which I could see. You could set steps to a goal, but then they might have to be modified.
Sure. Yeah, certainly be fluid about it.
All right, so I think we need a goal document that's much less specific than what we're working with, and we need a addendum, appendix that goes with the goal document about what does this look like as the operational side, because you guys are the policy side. You guys want to say, these are the goals, but you want us to tell you how we're going to get there. And when we're going to get there.
Right.
How we're going to do checkpoints.
Yes, checkpoints.
Okay.
Formative assessment.
I know what that means.
And it came up earlier with the gentleman who was asking for benchmarks and metrics on our safety and security, which I could have jumped in and said that's growth area 3, safety and security, and we literally have on this document metrics, baseline, target, strategy, and this is the type of thing that I think the community and obviously the board is interested in seeing for our 4 areas that we're looking at.
All right.
And one other thing on goals, just maybe this is getting too in the weeds, but I just want to speak it out loud, is that under the academic and rigor section, we have a lot of strategies regarding like attendance, program, this Branching Minds program, which I'd love to have a presentation about because I haven't heard of it before, that monitors and analyzes emotional health and social emotional wellness. And there's also monitoring the code of conduct and student behavior. So all of those items I feel like very important and certainly connected to academic rigor, but maybe would be more suitable down in the health and wellness section because they deal more with health and wellness of students than academics. Although of course they're connected.
You'd like to move
specifically under there's like some items highlighted in green. Not all of the things highlighted in green, but a chunk of items highlighted in green, to my understanding, would fit better under the health and wellness.
Who highlighted them in green?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Somebody highlighted them in green and you'd like them to be moved to health and wellness.
Yeah, not all of them, but you'll have to go through and analyze for yourself which ones seem more academically focused and which ones seem more health and wellness focused.
Okay. Not all of them, just some.
Okay. Like there's some of the items are evaluate effectiveness of tier 1, 2, and 3 instruction and support. But then there's other ones like monitor improve student attendance and tardiness, and collect and analyze data on students accessing ASTER services, drop-in counseling, and with social workers and school counselors and school psychologists. Like, to me, that's clearly student health and wellness.
Okay, we'll look at that. I believe that concludes my superintendent.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, takes us to item 7, the board committee reports. 7.1, facilities committee. Glenn.
Hello. So we met at the middle school on December 11th. So the first thing I did is I provided a recap to the facilities committee about what we had learned, what Steve and I and Deb had learned at Fiora with our meeting with the superintendent, assistant superintendent. We talked about staffing and savings and problems they faced and the physical move itself. So that was part of the meeting. This turned into a discussion, and each of these received a decent amount of discussion time. Universal pre-K possibly being at the high school for a variety of reasons. So we discussed that, and that was kind of talked about. We talked about what a 3-school campus would look like, right? We looked, there's a plan for a 3-school campus and a 2-school campus. So we talked about that a little bit. There's a little bit of discussion about, in the future, offering BOCES programs here. Instead of maybe sending all our kids to BOCES, I believe, I'm not sure how many programs BOCES has, maybe 16 or 17 specific programs. If some of them were offered here, those kids could get those programs here instead of going to BOCES. So that was discussed, all in relation, all these discussions, the universal pre-K, the BOCES, all was in reference to how much space is in our district. Specifically this building right here with the BOCES and the universal pre-K. So then we took an in-depth tour of the middle school. So we went through the middle school, there were a lot of things we saw. We were all very impressed with how clean the building was, how well the buildings are maintained. The classrooms the teachers set up were just really amazing. There's a total of 8 empty classrooms in the middle school, and some of the classrooms were giant, like large classrooms. So there was enough space in the wing, which is the current 6th grade wing, the one that has the entrance, exit, or at least a point of entry and point of exit facing south towards Lincoln Place there. Like that whole bottom floor could house the current 5th grade and good portion of the 6th grade, and then maybe a couple classes upstairs in that same wing to finish the 6th grade. So we could move the 5th grade there and have a 5th, 6th grade wing. So we walked around the building, we saw a super cool spiral staircase in the kitchen, which was very strange. We climbed up that. We talked about state aid available at Duzine, $100,000 a year for 10 years. And there was some discussion about maybe getting, sooner than later, the facilities committee making a report out to the board at large about some of the stuff they've been doing. So we should probably start thinking about that. It would be nice if the board could kind of, maybe start, and I know we get a lot of stuff going on. We got the capital project, we're talking about cell phones, but maybe a little bit of direction from the board about when this might happen. I know we got budget season coming up, so there's a lot of stuff happening, but we really need to kind of get moving with this. Next facilities meeting is going to be at the high school, where we're going to walk through the high school, check everything out, see the space, take a look at it. We have a to-do list was how much is Duzine worth, if we rented it, or if leased it, sold it. What are we looking at here? And we'd like to see how many kids were in the middle school prior to the construction of Lenape. Lenape went online, I believe, in '93. So prior to that, the way the district was run was 5, 6, 7, 8 was at the current middle school. Be nice to have like a 10-year spread, like whatever the years were, from 1980 to 1990. How many kids were in that building? You know, and that would even be before any sort of construction was built on it. You know, I venture to say there was as many kids in the school then as there is now without any sort of additions being constructed. So that'd be great to get that information. And that's really all I have. Did I miss anything? Jason, did I miss anything?
Well, I guess maybe one point, and I forget now, I think we might have discussed it. You guys went to Aotearoa, right, and talked
Yeah.
about their process.
Yeah.
You know how long, I forget, was it, how long
Did
was their
didn't I report out on that at the last board meeting?
You might have, but in order to, like, how long of a process?
Well, they did it two ways. So basically, one school, they closed, they announced it, and then it was a whole year where they prepared for the whole thing. And the other one, they announced it and closed it that fall. Now, so they were like, they had two different options. This is what we did the first time, the second time, then there was a time in the, you know, potentially coming up. It took a while when they did it for a year. They didn't advise us doing it quick, that's for sure. They liked the year-long process. Now, one difference with our school and their school is their schools are much more community-based. Like, our kids are going to Duzine, then they're going to Lenape. So if you live in Gardner or Sopus, you know, wherever, you're going to Duzine or Lenape. Where their school's there was Phoenicia. The kids that lived in Phoenicia, they grew up there, they went to that elementary school. And then there was the kids in West Hurley. So they never really mixed. So a lot of the time they spent talking about doing, like, transitioning, were bringing the kids from those schools to where their new school would be. It was like an entire new district, you know, they didn't come down there. It was
Sounds
like
very regional, like.
yes,
pod. Yeah,
they were painting murals on the walls from the previous school, so when the new kids came in from, say, Phoenicia, they felt very at home in the new building that they had maybe never been to.
Yeah.
You know, other than driving through it on your way to Kingston. So there was that, and then there was the physical move itself, which they paid the teachers, I believe, 6 hours to move their stuff. You know, not when they were working, whether it was weekends or after school. Or to package up their stuff in the district and move it.
I think the other big thing, that piece of information that we need to get is what do we estimate our savings will be if we do this. It'll be an estimate, but we'll get you an estimate.
It'd be great. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I would love to have a report out from the facilities committee to us, possibly with, like, really highlighting what space we have available in the different buildings, including Duzine, like knowing how many empty rooms there are there, underutilized spaces. Just all the buildings, I guess, that you guys are touring and doing a good job of, you know, just give us like a really clear picture of what we have and what we need to make some changes like these.
Yeah, I could imagine. That would be great. I kind of foresee down the road somewhere that we might need to have an extra facilities meeting. You know, we got the capital project, how that's going to go. We might have to meet regarding that, and then this possible thing, and then prepare a presentation.
I'd also be curious if the facilities committee thinks it's worthwhile to engage some kind of an outside body to help us with this
I
process.
think we do, because that's one thing they talked about in Aotearoa. So they hired somebody, and basically they presented to the community, and there's nothing new they learned. Like, everything that was presented, they're like, okay, we didn't learn anything new, but they felt it was still very valuable, and it provided value to the process that the district was willing to spend a little bit of money to bring out in an outside consultant on this.
Mm-hmm.
So they recommended that.
Okay.
And it made the community feel better.
I can imagine that with the kids. Can you talk a little more about 3-school versus 2-school campus?
Well, a little bit. I read the report that was originally made during the initial phases of the capital project in 2014, this was the project that was approved to be done. So this was set multiple years in the planning. So really, the first meetings on this were taking place in like 2009 and 10. Basically, it laid out what the district would look like in case of, or in the eventuality of, a declining enrollment. What would, just like what schools would be utilized if we close schools. Like, for example, the 3-school model was Lenape, the middle school, and the high school. And then it talked about a potential 2-school model being the middle school and high school, if that was possible. But it was more detailed for a 3-school model. But it was something they did look at. I have that report. Joe had sent it, and I can send it to the whole board.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, the 3-school model certainly had more meat and potatoes to it than the 2-school model.
Yeah, I was thinking that if we consolidate campuses, a benefit, maybe cost savings down the road would be busing and transportation. I feel like that's where we'd see a lot of it, and especially given, obviously the community's really concerned about the upcoming mandates with electric buses, and if we have a smaller fleet, that would make that lift slightly.
It would be, and that's where Ontiora said they had their savings, was the transportation. Significant savings. And I would imagine it would be the same here. Yeah. I
have a Duzine bus and a Lenape bus show up at my house 5 minutes apart.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you're buying electric buses, buying, I don't know, say 35 buses instead of 50.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Oh, like route consolidation.
It's a big deal.
Another good thing about consolidating elementary buildings is it would probably strengthen our goals for vertical and horizontal alignment if the teaching is being done in one building by the same group, not split up. So it's not necessarily a financial benefit, but I think it's a benefit.
That's a great point. I agree.
I don't know. I don't want to be premature, but maybe it could also open up opportunities for enrichment. We've been talking about student enrichment. Like if there was a student who, was able to do math at a higher level, let's say, if they were able to, I don't know if this would be feasible or not, but I'm just talking off the top of my head, like if they were able to join a classroom a grade or two up, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think what would be helpful for the facilities committee, and the meeting is a good idea, so it should be kind of like a little presentation or back and forth exchange. It would be important for the facilities committee to know what you are thinking. So for example, they're looking at the buildings, they're looking at all the available space. I guess they can present that to you, but ultimately the decision is, which is going to shape everything, is what's this going to look like? Is it going to be the 5th grade coming to the middle school, or is it going to be the 5th grade? Is it going to be grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at Lenape, moving district office, which certainly seems more expensive to me. So like that is something that should just kind of be discussed maybe by the board to kind of give the facilities committee can recommend what they think.
That's a good recommendation. I think would be a good starting point.
Yeah.
Did Ontiora hold forums with the community?
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel like just as we discussed with cell phones, the surveys and scheduling forums, I think this should get the same treatment.
Yep. They went to each town. They talked about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of runway on this would be very important.
Thanks, Glenn.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Right, it takes us to 7.2 policy committee. Liz.
Okay, so the policy committee did not meet in November, so that's why you haven't heard anything about policy in a while. But we did meet on the 11th of December, and the policies that we're going to ask you guys to look at before our January 15th meeting are 6410, the staff acceptable use policy. We talked about this one at our last policy meeting, prior to our last policy meeting, and we sent it to our technology department to review it, and they came back with a new staff acceptable use policy, and it was very good. So we didn't have to change much. We moved a sentence or two for flow, and there was a section where we were debating personal use of social media by staff on the school network. and the policy committee put in language to prohibit personal use of social media on the school network. Personal use. If it's academic or professional use, that's a different story. So 6560, that's sick leave transfer upon change in the bargaining unit. This one needed a new number, but other than that, we did not change the document. 6550, leaves of absence. This was thoroughly reviewed by our legal counsel. They did a really thorough job, including grammar and things like that. So we didn't have any changes beyond what the changes that they made to the document. 6551, the Family Medical Leave Act. We had a question on this one, so we sent it to Deb, and based on Deb's commentary, we did not make any changes. 7121, diagnostic screening of students. This is something that we didn't previously have in our policy manual. This is an Erie 1 BOCES policy that's new to us. And after reviewing it, the policy committee recommended not adding it to the manual. Part of the reason of that is the way it describes the diagnostic screening of students just doesn't mesh with what we currently do. 7131, education of students in temporary housing. This one we didn't make any changes on. It outlines compliance with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. So after that. 7133, education of students in foster care. It needs a new number, but other than that, no changes. 7140 is school census. This is another Erie 1 policy. I mean, they're all Erie 1 policies, but this is one that we didn't have in the manual or anything similar previously. And the policy committee recommended not adding it to the manual because it's a procedure that we don't do. We don't have a school census, and it's not required, so we don't intend to begin it. 7150, same story. This is a policy regarding remote learning. We don't intend to employ remote learning in any meaningful way in the district, so we recommended not adding this to the manual. 7211, provision of interpreter services to parents who are hearing impaired. This one we decided to send to legal counsel for review, just to be sure that we're abiding by the law and following it properly. 7212, response to intervention process. The district needs to cut, this is an Erie 1 policy that specifically calls out areas the district needs to customize to our current process, so we sent this one to Steve and Linda for review. 7220, graduation options, early graduation and accelerated programs. We removed language in this policy about the district determining readiness. Our district does not determine readiness for accelerated programs, for example. That's left up to the students and the families to determine. So we removed that language, and we removed a section on online coursework. 7221, participation in graduation ceremonies and activities. We removed a section of this that didn't apply to our situation, and we added language about participation being contingent upon the completion of graduation requirements. 7222, diplomas or credential options for students with disabilities. We made no changes to that. So some of those will not come to you, but a lot of them will, so have fun reading them, and we'll talk about them on the 15th.
So to 8.1, so we're going to table 8.1. As Liz just said, we'll revisit that in January. Do I need to do anything beyond that, Sandy? Table it? All right. Takes us to item 9, minutes of meeting. Item 9.1, can I get a motion to accept the minutes of the business meeting of December 4th, 2024?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Item 10, the personnel consent agenda. Can I please get a motion? Item 10.1. Can I please get a motion to approve the items of the personnel consent agenda 11.1 through 12.9? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. Second? I'm sorry, yeah. Was there a second in there?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to item 13. Can I please get a motion for item 13.1 for the approval of Committee on Special Education Recommendations and Student Placements?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to new business. Item 14.1. Can I get a motion for the approval of the RSC One Risk Operations Center to negotiate the data privacy agreements on behalf of the districts?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Takes us to item 14.2. Can I please get a motion for the approval of memorandum of agreement with New Paltz United Teachers?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it takes us to the second public comment. I don't know if I've seen any additions to the list in the audience. So we're going to go to exec.
You would like to go to exec?
Yes. Probably for the cover sheet, and then I can narrow down the purpose. All right. Can I get a motion to enter executive session to discuss the matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll return with no action.
Thanks for staying.
Go ahead. I don't know we need to fill out on
We'll
this.
be actually.
No, we'll just add it to the library.
Like that.